All right. Hey everybody, it is 7 o'clock and we're going to start on time. You know why? Because you're here. So good evening, my name is Doc Wheeler. I am the Executive Director for the Black Arts and Cultural Alliance of Chicago. I'd like to welcome everyone on this lovely summer, winter, fall, spring, Chicago night, and on BACA's premier town hall. Tonight's theme is Chicago Arts Organizations. What can we do? In other words, how can we help secure the future of Chicago's treasured arts organizations? Our discussion will tackle the pressing challenges faced by Black arts organizations, artists, and art groups, notably in funding, audience support, stewardship, and the development of talent pipelines. Before we start our discussion, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Black Ensemble Theater and our queen mum, Jackie Taylor. Jackie's not here, but we give her honor today. I'd also like to thank the Goodman Theater for allowing us to be a part of the 100 Free Acts of Theater initiative. The BACA board and staff, including our development director, Alicia Duncan, and our executive director, Emeritus Luther Goins. I'd like to also thank our town hall host and panelists, and you for coming out tonight. So, without further ado, let's get to the introductions. Let's starting with our moderator, civic and arts leader, Amina Dickerson, who brings a 35-year career with senior leadership roles in the nonprofit, arts, corporate, and philanthropy sectors. Next, we have Lucy Smith, award-winning vocalist, Obie Soul star, musician, photographer, and artist. Ron O.J. Parson, theater director. Andre and Francis Guichard, visual artists and gallery owners. Troy Pryor, Emmy-nominated filmmaker and founder of Black Film Magazine, Creative Cipher. And last but not least, Joseph Pendelski, executive director, Joel Hall Dancers and Center. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator and panelist, Anita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're glad you were brave enough to come on out, or maybe you're just tired of being home in the cold and said, let me just come out and hear a little something. We've got a terrific panel here for you tonight, and we're going to do this a little bit differently than perhaps some. I know you may have read that we'll have the panel speak and then we'll save 30 minutes for your Q&A at the end. But I think it's great for us to have a conversation. We've got a wonderful array of people on the panel, but also we've got some informed and knowledgeable folks out in the audience, out in the house. And so there'll be a couple of places along the way that I will stop and ask if you have any questions and get your feedback about things. And then if you have a question that does not come up during the course of the panel, of course we will be taking a few questions at the end. And then we hope you'll join us outside for some brief refreshments. Now, as you can see, the doc, as he is called lovingly, is going to keep us on time. So the first thing we want to do, we've got a large group of people. We're going to ask them to introduce themselves a little bit more, talk a little bit about where they're from, what brought them to Chicago, what work they're doing now that they're excited about, and also would they recommend Chicago to other artists coming to town? Would you encourage someone to come to town because of our arts community? So I think I want to start on the right here with Francis and Andre Guichard and ask them to talk a little bit about it. We'll be passing the mic back and forth throughout the evening.
Good afternoon. My name is Andre Guichard, artist, collector, curator, co-owner of Gallery Guichard, and Building Community Foundation in Bronzeville, here with my lovely wife, Frances Guichard, who's also my business partner, life partner, soulmate. And I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago, 34 years as a studio artist, 21 years as a proud partner with my wife of owning Gallery Guichard in Bronzeville. And I would say to any artist who has the privilege of living operating in Chicago, it's like no other city in the world. And it's our art activism, the collector base that I can say supported my career, my journey, but I think you still have to leave Chicago also at the same time.
Hello everyone, I'm Frances Guichard, artist, collector, curator, and co-owner of Gallery Guichard with my amazing husband. And I have an interesting story. I didn't start out as an artist and a gallerist. I was the director of the Food Protection Program, the first African-American director and first female for the city of Chicago. And when I met Andre, I got into art. Art has always been in my soul, and I am a self-taught artist, and now my artwork resides in many professional and well-known corporate collections and law firms. So I'm very proud to be here on the stage to be able to talk about that. So I think that, you know, telling artists to come to Chicago, there's so much untapped waters. And I think there's so much opportunity that will allow an artist to branch out in whatever discipline you're in, to truly engage people with your talents. And there are so many people out there who are hungry for it. They just need to know that you're there.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Pendelski. I'm the executive director of Joel Hall Dancers and Center. Grew up in Chicago and left to the East Coast for college and a few years afterwards and came back. And I think that's a great point, that you need to leave Chicago to really, I think, grow, but also appreciate how wonderful Chicago is. I think the community here is really dynamic in terms of the experimental to the more established informal theater and performance and art. And I think that there's a lot of accessibility just in terms of even the big institutions. You can get a meeting and have a human conversation with people, which isn't really the case in a lot of places like New York, or where I was in Washington, D.C., where it's a really small kind of insular community. And there's also a lot of impact from the city, a lot of really great things that come out of Chicago, which continue to make it a really great and nourishing place for artists to grow.
Thank you.
My name's Lucy, and I am a native Chicagoan. I make music. I'm a singer, band leader, and I call myself, you know, that wonderful word, a creative. And so I do multi-genre Black music, so that covers the spectrum: jazz, blues, gospel, fine art. It's Black. For the past decade, I have partnered with Shawn, a wonderful journalist, in doing what we call edutainment programs that combine history and music and spoken word. Some of the shows are Chicago Bound, The Great Migration of the Blues, Chicago Soul, the words and music of Gwendolyn Brooks and Curtis Mayfield, a show called Shout Out, which is a tribute to gays and gospel music. And the show we're working on for this summer that's coming up is called, it's a working title, it's called Resistance and Freedom, America's Song, just in time for the, you know, celebrating the 250th anniversary of our lovely country. And I don't say that, you know, I'm not jesting in that regard. Chicago is the place to be. I mean, I can't imagine making art anyplace else. And before I made music full-time, I was the associate director at the Crossroads Fund. It's a progressive foundation that's here, and so it's really helps me navigate all the things that you need to navigate to make art here in the city.
Great evening to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Obi Soulstar. I'm a musician, photographer, and artist here in Chicago. I was lucky enough to open up my own art gallery 4 years ago called Electric Soul Hideout Studios in the West Loop.
Could you say that name again?
Electric Soul Hideout Studios, and it's in the West Loop. Chicago born, Nigerian raised, and I am so I am so happy and fortunate that my parents, who were Nigerian, they came here to go to school, and they decided to take my sister and I back to Nigeria when they had graduated. So I don't need to go through 23andMe and all that stuff. I know there's a gumbo of stuff that I'm made out of, but being able to now reside back in Chicago and be a creative in this space, I'm thrilled and always excited to wear my culture as a Nigerian, as a black man here in America and in Chicago, on my back through my music, which is a fusion of soul, rock, funk, and R&B, and Afrobeat. To have masquerades on my stage when I perform is just a tribute to my dad, Lawrence Chukwumawakwe, who is my ancestor, and I will always mention him on any platform that I have. But I will ask or encourage artists to come to Chicago, and the artists in Chicago to stay in Chicago. There's a certain energy in this city, right? And our young artists that are coming up right now, giving them a space to be able to spread their wings unapologetically and being able to express themselves through their art forms is really, really, really important. I'm only 48 years old, so I tend to gravitate backwards to pull those behind me forward and encourage them to be more expressive in their art forms, and not look at the fact that they didn't go to school to learn how to paint or do music or to act. If you can do it, if it's in your heart to do it, then you are that thing. There's no such thing as an up-and-coming artist, right? If you're an artist, you're an artist. Art is subjective. There could be a white canvas with a red dot, and somebody will see that as gold. Someone else will look at it and say it's a white canvas with a red dot. So whatever your area of expertise is, to lean into it, to let it just flow. Let it just flow like water through you. And those that need to gravitate to it will gravitate to it. At Electric Soul Hideout Studios, there's an exhibit going on right now, my first exhibit of the year, called Silhouette of a King. And it speaks to the black man and what we have to go through wearing that crown as a king, from childhood to adulthood, the masculinity of it, and how we still need our queens in that process. So, hope you can check it out.
Troy?
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the stage with everyone here. My name is Troy Pryor. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I'm a filmmaker, voice actor, immediate past vice president of the Screen Actors Guild Chicago chapter, and just very grateful to be born and raised in Chicago. Chicago has allowed me to be a mentor and have mentors, and just shout out to a mentor, Mr. Ramon Rami, right there in the audience there. Enjoy our conversations and insight for sure. And I'm just, I think about some of the things that were said here. Chicago has allowed a lot of brilliant minds and thought leaders to collaborate with one another, build things, see what works, what doesn't work, break, mold, reshape, and it's allowed me to launch the organization Creative Cipher. And so those are some of the things that we really work on, is identifying what resources are available, how to reallocate those towards emerging thought leaders, because access is oftentimes the most challenging issue. We see artists all the time, especially from Chicago, migrate away, leave. We lose a lot of those thought leaders because they don't feel that that connection is there. So just being aware of the resources becomes a huge catalyst for building community with one another. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it and continue to grow.
Thank you. You brought up Ramon. It's like he's a mentor of mine before I even knew him, because I had heard so much about him. I'm not from Chicago. I've been here 34 years now, so I feel like a Chicagoan. But I'm a Bills fan, not a Bears fan, but you know, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I got here from New York. I actually went to New York City to pursue my career. I've been acting and directing since I was a kid. In the 3rd, 4th grade, I started. And going back to the original thing about Chicago, there ain't no place like Chicago. And I've learned that. Even when I go home to Buffalo, I tell people, you need to come to Chicago. I've tried to get so many actors to come to Chicago that I knew in Buffalo, and they're still there. But so yeah, I started as a freelance artist here. My first gig, when I first came, I auditioned at the Goodman. I got cast, and I was like, everybody was like, man, I've been trying to get into Goodman. I was like, hey, it's life. That's how it works. And then my first movie audition was Primal Fear. And I got cast in that. I said, hey, I think I'm supposed to be in Chicago. So then I started a theater company, but then again, going back to hitting on some of everything that everybody's saying is the ancestors. I always try to put the ancestors in my work and bring up the ancestors and all the different, not the 23andMe, but I do know there's a bunch of stuff in here, So I try to pull it all up, and I do a lot of August Wilson. I've done 32 productions of August Wilson work, and I'm going to be doing Joe Turner's Come and Gone. I got to put a little plug in there to complete the 10th of the cycle, 10 plays in one theater down at Court Theater. I neglected to say I've been at Court Theater in the South Side for 20 years. And again, paying it forward, supporting all the companies, all the different creatives we have here, dance, music, art, all that, and being black. And promoting and supporting and getting the young people involved that they can learn from us. I just had a birthday recently, and I'm getting old, but so what? We just gotta keep on keeping on. I turned 73 the other day, so that's a journey in itself. But anyway, yeah, I want to turn it over because I'm the last one. But just thank you for supporting us, and we got to keep it moving. We got to keep paying it forward, and we got to bring in the ancestors. Always think about the ancestors, the one who came before. I'm getting up. I can do monologue now, so.
Ron was honored in December for his long service. As he said, it's 10 plays that he will have directed, all of the same theater of August Wilson's work, and that is something that I don't think anybody else in Chicago has done, or nationally for that matter.
I think there's 2 or 3 people, but...
Well, he's the first in Chicago. As you can see, we have quite a distinguished panel, and I feel compelled to tell a little of my story as well. Yes. With my brother Ron, are the only 2 people that are immigrants to Chicago. We are migrants here, but we've also fallen in love with the city and state. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., in the shadow of the Capitol, and in a city that had a very lively and active theater, dance, and music community, particularly because in visual arts, I cannot leave out visual arts, we had the presence of Howard University. So when you have a historically black college in town that is very well known for its theater program, for its music program, for its film programs, that was sort of the impetus for me. I went to a high school for the performing arts before it was the high school for the performing arts. It was something called Workshops for Careers in the Arts. We had an extraordinary opportunity to learn from the greats, to learn from people who are now ancestors. Mike Malone and Clyde Jacques Barre and Charles Brown. Kenny was so sweet. So wonderful teachers that encouraged us. We did street theater every year. We traveled all over the country to perform in the streets of Ottawa, the streets of Mobile. But I learned early that I didn't like the audition process because I did not like the rejection, right, and the uncertainty. I liked a regular paycheck. And so I went into arts management. because those are the people who are always working on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I've had a very blessed career. I worked at Smithsonian for 12 years, and then Philadelphia. Many of you know I came to Chicago in '85 to head Ensemble. I was there, then the Historical Society, and then I moved into the philanthropic sector. And that's one of the things we want to talk a little bit about today. How does the philanthropic sector really support the Black cultural arts community? We're very fortunate here. Coming from DC and then in Philadelphia, I will tell you, there's not the array, not the diversity, not the commitment of the philanthropic community in those cities to Black cultural arts as there is in Chicago. And so you may not get that MacArthur Foundation grant the first year, but there is the PIC Fund and the Fry Foundation and the Polk up until a year ago, and now Treehouse and others. So I want to talk about, I want our panel to reflect from your disciplinary approach, okay? I would imagine, Troy, a lot of your work is done as an independent, and so trying to get a grant, they need to see something very big. You're going to tell us in a minute. Managing and running an art gallery is no small thing, and has expenses on an ongoing basis. After many openings, I have to tell you, I don't have to have any more wine. No more wine at the opening, and cheap cheese too. But all that notwithstanding, those are costs to bring people in. So I'd like you to talk about what that looks like as a singer, as a dancer, putting your artists out there. Since 2020, we have lost audiences. Since 2020, we have lost funding. And I want them to just reflect a little bit on what that impact has been on the disciplines that you are working within. So I think I'm going to start in the middle here and ask Lucy, and then work out that way, and then work out from Ron in. We're going to make you our last speaker for that. Okay. Okay. So, Lucy?
Yes, so I'm coming from the perspective as an individual. I don't have an anchor or work directly with organizations, and so funding is a little tricky for me. And so there are some outlets in Chicago that support, like the that are associated like with DCASE, haven't gotten that grant yet, but Night Out in the Parks, which is the arts arm of the Chicago Park District, has been good to me. And they also have kind of this team of people who are open to ideas and look at art offerings really differently. And but as I grow, I really need to have access to more outlets that are open to individuals who don't necessarily have that organizational connection. And so it's just an ongoing challenge. But there are other kinds of campaigns to engage the audience, and then I'm really learning, even after all of these years, it's okay to really ask audiences to engage in different kinds of ways. And so, meaning both, supporting you by being present, but then also willing to support you financially. And sometimes it really does take an ask. So
you have to ask for what you need.
But it's different being on, it's different, at least for me, asking for me as opposed to asking for someone else.
Asking for a project.
Yes, and so, no, I mean, like, literally, I can fundraise for something else that doesn't, I'm behind the scenes easier than I can for me. I don't know if it's just me, but.
Well, while we're talking to the individuals, I think it would be great to talk and to hear from you too, because the individual artist has a very different life and experience in terms of support in the city. Troy, why don't you start us off, and then I'll ask you.
Sure, it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. And so we've had to really think outside of the box. I've applied for several grants as a filmmaker, independent artist grants. Some have I received, some have not. And so I repurposed the approach when I launched the organization to be more of an enterprise, and Creative Cipher, which is the company I founded, we have both a for-profit and a not-for-profit arm of things. So we focus on not only creating the content, but what our motto is: eliminate the need for permission. And it all comes back to almost trying to avoid needing to apply for certain grants. So then we started to create live events and activations that help to garner larger audiences. And what that did was it attracted brand partners. And so now instead of applying for certain grants or applying for grants, we would also take a traditional sponsorship route. And so now we can apply for a grant, but we're also subsidizing or working with a United Airlines or a brand in a very traditional, sense. But all of those things are because, as an artist, it can be really difficult, especially if you're not in a system, if you're not a legacy organization. A lot of organizations receive grants over and over and over again, and sometimes those grantors want to see a certain amount of years of activity as well, and that can be a challenge if you are a smaller organization or an individual. Now, one of the things that I've seen work, if you do it right, is working with an existing organization that could be your fiscal sponsor as well, and so that can also help. And so that's been beneficial. We've actually started to do a little bit of that as well. But just looking at the all the tools that are available, and that's nothing proprietary to us. That's what we do as independent artists. That's what we do as Black folks. We find ways to make things work, and so we had to look at instead of looking at it, this is a film. This film project is a part of the ecosystem that we built that now allows us to curate certain conversations after that film is done. And so now there's a live event. We started to produce and support podcasters, and now we have a whole roster of journalists partnered with NABJ. And so now when our project is done, we're always on the news network because we partner with. We had to think about all those things. National Association of Black Journalists.
Just in case.
And so we just had to look at all of the elements of the supply chain. So even if we got that grant and we were able to apply a portion of it, in my journey, I may ask for the whole thing but get 10%. So then I'm still challenged with that. So how do I subsidize and fill those other areas? And so that's been my journey, is to figure out how do you fill those gaps. And we've started to find some pathways for that. Our main program, what we call our lab program, our most recent project is now nominated for an NAACP Image Award, which we'll find out this month about. And a lot of that stemmed from us saying, okay, we can't just approach this as looking for funding for this film. The film is about a teen Black male superhero. It's an animated project with the voiceover of Keith David, that the superhero deals with depression and anxiety. So now it's not just a film, it's an important conversation that can be curated in spaces or in places where folks may not want to talk about things of that nature. So then Blue Cross Blue Shield got on board. So those are some of the things that we had to do, because as an individual seeking some of those bigger grants, it was a challenge and still has been a challenge. So we've had to think about all of the different pathways to accessing resources.
Do you feel the same about the work that you're doing, even with those different?
The question I'm asking is, do you feel like you've compromised your artistic vision to get those dollars, or are those projects still like in the pocket of what you would want to do otherwise?
No, actually, it's been a good experience. When we launched our main festival, which happens in August, Excel Fest, it was right in the pocket of Hip Hop 50. And we launched the festival at a time, we were talking earlier, there have been so many individuals that have done very well for themselves, that have gone off from, away from Chicago, that always wanted to come back. And when we launched that, we got a lot of support because it was timing. It was the thing that folks had been looking for, something that wasn't performative. And when we created that opportunity, there tended to be a snowball effect. Again, thanks to Pimon, Robert Townsend came in, and once that happened, it was this snowball effect. And so we had to continue just just continue to think outside the box. Now we're building more educational programs for some of the institutions here that are having challenges with their enrollment right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Obi?
Yes. So my perspective would really be from an individual. I haven't had the luxury or the opportunity or the favor of being able to get a grant yet. I've knocked on so many doors, and it just hasn't happened yet. So even when it came to my art as an artist, you knock on doors to get into galleries, and either your art is not what they may consider black enough or modern enough or whatever other race thing I've experienced in other communities. So I opened my own space. I opened my own gallery where I can display whatever I want, invite whoever I want, display whoever I want. It took a while to get there. Now, when I say a while to get there, I opened the gallery 4 years ago. 20 years prior to that is when I had planted that seed out in the universe. Then COVID hit, the space opened up, a buddy hit me up and was like, 20 years ago you said you wanted a gallery. You want to come check this place out? Well, I walked in the place and it did not fit my vision from 20 years ago, because I envisioned the industrial lofts, where we used to party at back in the day, the high ceilings and open space, and that's not what this was. But it was a loft. It just wasn't an industrial loft. But then I remembered, a lot of times we ask the universe for this, but it gives us this because this is what you need right now to start building and propelling to whatever your dream is. They say the sky's the limit, but it's what's beyond that we're hoping to achieve. As a musician, I used to play House of Blues before COVID. COVID hit, everything has now come to smaller venues, which is still okay. But when I used to play House of Blues, trying to get support from the community, back then the tickets were like $10, $20. I would run campaigns where I would meet people wherever you are to deliver your $10, $20 ticket, and you still may not show up. Because what's that? Starbucks coffee, right? But that was the hustle that I needed to do as an individual. So when I come to give you a ticket and you're like, I just want to support you, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm like, no, I need your body there. I need your body there, because a lot of times it's more than just the money. You need the money, but you need that physical support for people to see what it is you're doing and to feel. They say if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Yes, it does. But if no one's there, no one feels the impact. So now that I'm doing City Winery, which again, in my opinion, they are winning by default, because there aren't that many music venues in the city of Chicago that we can go to experience some great live music. So I've been doing City Winery, and the campaign is almost some of the same as far as marketing goes. But my point is to be able to sell yourself and market yourself while you're still trying to get those grants that you're looking for. I worked on a project called Scarred, The Journey of a Warrior. It's a breast cancer coffee table book that I worked on for 4 years. I went through the city of Chicago and I traveled around the world, curating these photos and capturing these breast cancer survivors in their strength as the warriors that they are. I tried to get grants for that, and I beat down those doors and it just didn't happen. Doesn't mean the project still didn't happen. I just had to refocus, right? And I'll share this with the room right now, because there's not a lot of us in here, so nobody's going to tell my secret. I was a fraud investigator for 19 years, up until last year, where I got injured. Then they let me go because they didn't want to cover the bill. Blessing and their curse. But my point is, I had to work, and I worked all this overtime did my job exceptionally well, but I worked the overtime so I could fund my projects. And it was something that my dad, Lawrence Chukwumawakwe, instilled in me. Never to let someone else other than you dictate your future and how things would go.
That's right.
That was one reason why I stopped doing the Battle of the Bands. Because my band could be better than, Joe Smo and the Smoking Guns, but because they had more people that were there, they win, right? So it's because of that vote. So I stopped doing Battle of the Bands because I wasn't going to give that much power to anyone to dictate where I should be. So my point is, with or without said funding, which we really, really need because it is tough out here. And I take my hat off to Gallery Gishard. They've been a staple in our community for years, doing exceptional work and exceptional exhibits, and they are the blueprint that the rest of us artists and art galleries can look up to and how to navigate and cultivate their space, right? But it takes work.
Good segue. Thank you, Obi. Let's hear from Gallery Gishard, and also want to hear a little bit more about Joel Hall and what you're facing in the dance community. So we'll hear from a sort of established gallery as opposed to a new one, and then what's happening in the art world. We've got a lot of art stars here in Chicago that are doing well on the global stage. What does that mean for the next generation coming up?
Thank you. And it's so much to talk about as I'm sitting here. I'm thinking, what can I talk about that can be powerful? But I think the first thing that I have to talk about is that we are a product of Chicago. And part of the journey, I remember looking at Samuel Kenya, a Ghanaian gallerist who was in Chicago and who was an art star in the late 80s and early 90s. And what was unique about Sam wasn't a traditional academia artist who got grants. Sam was getting sponsorship from BMW. So he had BMW outside his gallery at his openings. You could drive a BMW. So I remember thinking, wow, that's different. Nobody else is doing that. So that actually formed a lot of the work that we do now with multiple revenue streams. When we first opened Gallery Gishard 2005 on 35th and King Drive 21 years ago, we didn't have enough money to finish the build out. You couldn't get a loan because you were a new gallery and you're a small business. So all the things that you know as a reality were our reality. And the only thing that I knew as a studio artist was how to generate revenue 3 ways. One was at a gallery, one was on the road, and then another was fundraising. So because we didn't have enough money to finish the build out, we started doing that work before the brick and mortar. So we built the brick and mortar by exercising our revenue stream. And that's really the point that I think you have to pull up your bootstraps where you are and figure out a way to fund your operation every week, every day. And I think that was part of what helped us. We knew our business model, we knew our revenue streams, and we didn't depend on grants. So for many years, we didn't and couldn't get grants. And we always had to sell more art than our overhead. And we started, and someone shared something with us a while ago, and he allowed us to see making the gallery bigger than Andre Gishard or Marlene Campbell or any of the other 35 artists we represent. We made it a mission about creating platforms for artists and collectors to meet with the niche of art of the African diaspora. And that opened a whole new world for us to discover Africa. 15 trips to Africa, each country, 11 countries. We bring work back, and before I finish, it's having your revenue streams, knowing how you're gonna generate money, building relationships with people who are the grant writers, grant givers, and then those then allow you to start getting grants. But the other side for our business model was the sponsorship group, and following and understanding corporations need and want what you have. We are the creators of culture. We know how to create activities and events, and sponsors want to be in those spaces. We have that, so we have to remember that that's something that we offer and we can give. And last but not least, each, I guess we'll call it, for lack of a better word, each of these tragedies, whether it's COVID, whether it's the last recession 15 years ago, or whether it's what's happening now, require for us to adjust and be creative just as we are as artists. So what you do now in this tragedy or this recession is different from the first one, because the first one, it was about real estate. A lot of people were in real estate went south, so the people who were in real estate buying art couldn't buy art anymore, so we shifted to corporations. Now it's shifted to a K economy, which means the very, very wealthy are gonna keep being very wealthy, and the middle class is disappearing. So we have to shift our marketing and our strategies to where the very wealthy are. And you can be assured they're gonna still need to come to the creative venues that we create. They still need the art to create spaces that give them wellness. And I'll pass to Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And you know, what everyone's saying here really has great credence, because you know, a lot of that, even though we're partners in an art gallery, we had to experience what you guys have had to experience to get where we are almost 21 years later. As husband and wife, as a team, we started out 2005, as Andre said, really working hard to create the finances to be able to open the gallery. So I would say, one, collaboration is important. As he mentioned, he saw the artist, yeah, my goodness, thank you, Sam Kenya, and I saw the wood shop. And because I grew up near the wood shop, so I would go to the wood shop every day and look at the art and see the artist. And my mom was someone who also embraced the art, went to the Louvre. So, you know, just having those experiences and knowing that there are people out there that you can see doing what you want to do, but doing it differently and building collaborations. So even though they're doing what they do, think outside the box, think creatively. Think, you don't have to do what someone else is doing. You saw us, but you created your own niche, your own ideas, and then it gives you the freedom to be yourself. And when you're authentic, people see you and they want to be around you. They want to be a part of what you're doing. And we had to create our own, you know, dynamic, the way we want it to work, not the way someone else is doing it. But we also found collaborating with other people was important, because when you have the collaborations, as Andre mentioned, working with other artists, or whether we're working with other people in various different spheres, it allows you to build your network, and it ripples. And so the more you are engaged with people, the more people talk about you, and then the more people want to know what you're doing, and then they pass it along. So they spread the word, basically, letting them know this person is doing some amazing things, you need to go check them out. And so we work with artists too, young artists that come to events. And so you'll see, I think we see somebody over in the audience over there that we work with. And you know, it's so important to make sure that you're engaging the youth. And then young people are going to be that next buyer. They're going to be that next audience. So you want to make sure you're training them young, getting them into your studios, getting them into your art galleries so they can see the art. One day they may be the collector, and they may spread the word. Because I hate to say it, like we were talking, after COVID, things did change. And you know, it was hustling and bustling. Then we had the first recession, as Andre mentioned, about the recession with real estate. And you had to figure out, what do you do now? And then it was COVID, and COVID still hasn't rebounded. So everyone is asking these same questions. We've been in so many meetings where people are asking, what do you do to engage people to get them back into the seats? And I really believe you have to continue to collaborate with people, that we have to work together, us here on the stage. We have to make sure that we engage with the youth and bring the youth in to make sure they're they see what's happening so they can be the next audience, and that we continue to be our authentic selves. It will come, and though we don't always get grants, if we are building our own businesses and understanding the business behind what we do, we can make it work. You gotta understand the money and how it works. You have to understand how to go out and grab that audience. You have to understand how to market to that audience, and making sure that you're bringing in, letting them know that your stats and brag on yourself. There's things that you can do to really truly engage and build your brand so that other people will continue to engage.
And I just wanted to say one thing. I think this is a moment in time where all of us are in higher demand than we've ever been. And the reason why is because the world is so freaking crazy that you need an escape.
That's right.
Whether your ears, your eyes, somehow people want to release, and sometimes it's at home. So for us, it's creating those collections that make them feel like the craziness in the world, but when they turn on the music, they go to a play. It's all the same. It's just, how do we find a way to deliver our product to the masses that are going to need it more now?
We're going to come back to that question, but first I want to hear from you, Joe, about the dance world.
So,
dance was always the stepchild in Chicago.
and it still is nationally. Like when you look, there's a lot of reporting in foundation, the giving philanthropy foundations and data analysts. When it comes to the arts, dance is among the bottom of the funded art forms. And usually like visual arts are at the top, and then there's music, and then there's theater, and then there might be something else, and then dance, and there might be something under dance. So dance has always got a stacked deck against them. And I know for Joel Hall, I think what Andre was saying too about diversified revenues is really important. I think I came to Joel Hall in 2021. My background is in theater, not dance, so I'm still kind of learning as I'm going. But what I've seen is when Joel started the company in 1974, it was Joel in a studio in the Fine Arts Building teaching class. It was earned revenue. And he had a partner, Joseph Ehrenberg, who worked at the YMCA and understood more institutional nonprofit stuff. And in the 70s and 80s and into the early 90s, the company was really strong because you had Joel's hustle and that earned revenue, and you had Joseph's insights into the grant world. And then Joseph passed away in 95. And when I look back at our history, that's when the wheels start to come off the bus, because we started to lose that institutional knowledge about how the grant world works. And when I came in 2021, we received a Chicago Cultural Treasure Grant, which was a huge infusion of money, and frankly, the only reason we're still around. Because when they did an analysis, we were, prior to the pandemic, 89% earned revenue, which means that all the money was just people taking class or seeing a concert. And I think anyone who works in the arts knows, especially in theater and dance, you don't make money off your ticket sales, or very rarely do you ever. You get that grant money up ahead of time, you get those sponsorships, and maybe if you get enough, you'll have a little bit of a profit at the end from your concerts and shows. So when we got that, when I started in 2021 and I started to look at these numbers and analyze them, I'm coming from background of working in like major regional theaters where there was a really strong individual giving pool, and there really was a strong grant writing department, and then there was like ticket sales. So I started to really invest in strengthening our grant writing work and our individual giving work, both of which are getting stronger, but it's still that pitched battle. And the grant writing world, the grant world has changed a lot. So I'm going to encourage everyone here, when you get a survey from an arts organization that you love, do it. So many grant reports now, they want to know Who are the people you're serving? What is their income level? What do they look like? And if we don't get that information, we can't put together a strong grant application. One of the first things I did was, we use Google. I'm not a Google fan. But we sent out this Google survey, and this is not a diss, but 70% of it was white ladies who responded. And all you have to do is look at our classes, and it's not 70% white ladies in the classes. So then became the question of, is it an access issue? Is digital surveying the only way? Like, do people not have access to the computers or the technology to properly respond? Do they not have the time? How could we better engage with people to get their responses? And we've started building into our grant budgets data analyst as a line item. So that's part of where the grant money will go, so we can start to get this information back. And it's starting to show some rewards. We did a project earlier in 2025 that we'd been working on for years to get the funding for food and home insecure gay and lesbian young adults to have weekly dance classes. They get paid for them. And we had a data analyst as part of it, and at the end of it we had a pretty robust data report that talked about what was the value out of the program, who participated and what did they look like, and how did it change their life. And we had quantifiable and qualitative and quantitative data that we can then churn into all of these grant applications, and I can just apply that report, attach it to the submission. So that only came about because we were able to collect that data. So for the organizations that you love, do the surveys, participate in that way. And I think the diversified income, we're about to do our small dollar campaign. Please don't underestimate turning $5 into $60. If you give $5 a month, if you give $10 a month, it builds up over time. And if 10 people do $5 a month, that's $50 a month, that's $600 a year that we didn't have before. Never feel that $1 or $2 doesn't make a difference, because $1 or $2 compounded over time makes all the difference. And the grant community right now is a really scary place to be, because the federal government has reorganized its priorities. So a lot of foundations, they're not doing the arts because they're looking at how they're going to support the food banks, because they're going to have 8 times more people going to food banks right now, and they still only have enough food to feed a third of those people. And they're going to look at education and how student loans and defunding of education, pullbacks from the public schools. They're going to be looking and investing in those more differently. So what we're seeing in the arts, and what I can speak of firsthand from the dance community, is a lot of, you were in this portfolio 3 years ago, we'll get back to you and we'll invite you back. And so that's really scary, because these multi-year grants, they give you $150,000, $50,000 a year for 3 years, and you think you're going to get renewed, but maybe not. And so then all of a sudden you have a $50,000 gap to fill in your budget, and you don't know where you're going to get it from, because a lot of other foundations are pulling back. So you have to turn to your earned revenue, and you have to turn to your people. So similarly with the surveys, if you get a request from Joel Hall to donate, I'm going to encourage you, see what you can do. It doesn't have to be, the hugest bequest ever. It can be just $5 a month. It could be just $5 once a year. Over time, it makes a difference.
Thank you. Some really good ideas have come out, and I do want to take a pause here and see if there are any questions that you may have, or any responses to what you've heard about both strategies for getting money, the structure of funding for individuals versus institutions versus commercial galleries. Any questions out there? How many of you are born and raised in Chicago? I'm going to come to your question. How many of you are Chicagoans? Okay. And the rest of you are transplants from other places, right? Yes. Is that Sam Trumpet? Yes. Oh my God, we've got all these luminaries. Is that Maggie Brown?
Thank you.
Okay. Is that Doris Davenport, who's about to be honored by the Chicago Defender? Okay. And we've already heard about the Great Pink Moment. I'm sorry if I'm missing somebody. Cheryl Corley's in the audience. We've got people that bring a lot of different experience to this question. You had a question or comment?
My name is Rael Jackson. I represent Real Men Charities.
Ooh, yes.
We have the Quarry Event Center in South Shore. It's a neighborhood that is known as Terrortown, and that has been a 35-year situation. I believe that we're combating that to get people to come into the neighborhood, and we're talking about corridor development now, like developing 75th Street as a cultural corridor. You talked about collaboration. You know, I've watched how 47th Street has like transformed, how Bronzeville has transformed. What are some of the lessons that you learned? Are you in collaboration with like Black Pearl, or is that sort of separate? Or, you know, and you know, your art stuff, the way that you have your art nights and the buses and the way that you have connected, like King Drive.
The art trolley that runs during the summer.
As well as 47th. I'm kind of curious about the lessons that you learned from that. And all of you guys, I've had some type of experience from the George Daniels documentary that you did at Excel. You were at the Hyde Park Walk. My aunt was part of Joe Hall in the 90s. So, you know, I just feel so connected with this audience.
And if you have not been down to the Quarry, this has been a 2, 3, 4 year effort, actually before 2020. So in terms of taking this and trying to anchor that institution into a neighborhood that still has not, you know, 71st has come, 67th has come, but this has been a real struggle. What's your counsel? You got a little piece of advice for him?
Yeah, I do have
That's on.
I have a great piece of advice. I remember 20 years ago, after we opened, first people said nobody's gonna buy art in Bronzeville because it's Bronzeville. If you guys make over 75,000, that'd be something. They were so wrong. It's just unbelievable because our culture is amazing. But even in that moment, people said, oh, the only gallery in Bronzeville is Gallery Gishard. I said, oh no, there's many galleries in Bronzeville. So it was in that moment that we connected with the Southside Community Arts Center. We said, hey, why don't we form an art district? That collaboration is celebrating 20 years this year. It started with 50 people, as many as 3,500 people RSVP. Double-decker buses have become part of it now because when we traveled internationally, we'd always see double-decker buses, whether you're in France or Italy, it means tourism. That has helped people to say, oh, Bronzeville's safe. So I think arts and culture, what you're doing, entertainment are the key, but collaboration is the other piece, because you can't do it as an island.
I guess I want to build on that with a question. I hope you got some of what you need, Rael, but this is a conversation that can continue. Part of our struggle in Black cultural institutions is getting audiences to come out and to be willing to pay. Now, we will pay for a Beyonce ticket in a heartbeat. Of course, you get a fabulous show. No shade there. But our value system about honoring our own arts seems to not be in full force. I guess that's the best way I can say it. We have now a moment where Black art is hot, and so we're coming out for that. We have always followed Ron O.J. Parson and his work wherever he is. He's probably the hardest working director in the Chicago area. He works at everybody's theater, Goodman Theater, Corinth Theater, Timeline Theater, Raven Theater, whatever, you name it, he's there. And so they're authors that we've come to know. And if it's an August Wilson play, we'll come out. But if it's not an August Wilson play and Ron is directing, is it not as important for us to come out for those lesser known works? You know, we've heard that we've had to make films that are really have a social mission and are serving a really important void in terms of social and emotional learning and the emotional challenges that our young people are facing. And I know that's not the only kind of film you want to make, right? So the question is, we want to hear from you too. What do we need to do to get more of you to come to what is happening in these spaces? In Opie's gallery, in Gishard's gallery, go ahead, yes. And do we need to put a microphone down there?
Oh no, I got a big mouth.
By the way, I should have said, this is the person that produces everybody in the city, Ms. Shawn. Ms. Shawn, yes. Stand up and really take your stage, baby.
The answer to this, one of the answers to this question, I always see people put so much energy and effort into their work, which you should, but in this day and age of social media and television and screens, you have to create the experience for them to see. The trailers, the reel on the social media, the Instagram or the Facebook or the whatever, you have to give them a taste of your product in order for them to get excited about coming out to see your product. Media marketing is no longer, it's necessary. It's no longer an addition. It's practically necessary for the thing that you're doing. And also, I encourage everyone, social media is just like friendship. If you only talk to people when you need them, they're not gonna be your friends. It's a continuing conversation. You just can't ask. You have to talk to them on a regular basis and then hit them with the ask every 4th week or so. So it's an expense, if it's not your strong suit or not your forte, it's an expense that I encourage everyone to get. And also, don't think that it has to be slick and well produced. It just has to be engaging. It just has to be engaging and consistent.
I'm hearing a lot of amens about it doesn't have to be slick.
It doesn't have to be slick or well produced.
So,
think about the stuff you watch on Instagram. 95% of it is not slick or well produced. It just has to be engaging in order to beat the algorithm. So I encourage everyone to use social media, use as much free stuff as possible, use as much collaboration as possible, your friends list, that friends list, and build your own list. And keep telling people, you can't tell them once. This is like a whole job, reminding people over and over again to come to your thing and showing them a snippet of it.
I think this is the first time I've seen Ms. Shawn without a camera filming to put it on social media. Yes.
Hi, my name is Jamie.
Can you speak louder for us,
Yes,
Jamie?
hi, my name is
Give
Jamie.
her a mic. She needs a mic. I'm breathing around the table.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Jamie. I just got done performing for Broadway in Bronzeville. It was the Quiet Parts Out Loud. I don't know if anybody heard of it, but we just got done wrapping up. And we had a community day on Thursday where we had schools and senior citizens come out. And so my director or producer, Jimlita Tillman, she is phenomenal, if you know who that is. And I just love that aspect of it because it was so engaging. And as we were talking about like the civil rights movement and stuff too, it was just so beautiful seeing those different generations come together. So I think like community engagement is awesome as well too. So yeah.
All right, so I've heard a couple of things. Social media, you gotta get out there with your message pretty frequently. And I see another hand up there. Pimon is going to, yeah.
He said to stand up this whole time.
There's a mic right here. He's got a mic. Okay. Now we're going to work both sides. Okay. So I've heard we definitely need a social media strategy if you're not doing, and it doesn't have to be slick from what we've heard, but it's got to be consistent and it's got to be engaging, and every now and then you can throw in a special ask. We've also heard collaboration is really, really important to get your word out, to bring audiences in. There are ways in which we can utilize each other's strengths in that collaboration to either bring audiences in, to develop new projects, to go after money, all of that. Collaboration is key. And you can almost do a workshop on collaboration because there's good collaboration and there's bad collaboration and there's not even collaboration. So you've got to study hard in that collaboration space because it's like a marriage. It's like a partnership. Everything is not going to be easy and you're not going to agree on everything. I also heard the diligence, you know, that you can't, this is not for the faint of heart. If you're going to do this work, you have to be committed to it. You have to put your blood, sweat, and tears in it. If A route doesn't work, then try B route or C route or D route.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to be persistent. Pamon, you want to jump in here with something?
Yeah, I did. I think part of what we have to do is define what community means. And what I would ask people on the stage is, have you done it? Have you gone right next door, just to that community, and talked to them, pulled them in? We had a theater on the west side in 76. That's exactly what we did. We went door to door. We even developed a community ticket so they could get in cheaper than anybody else. But for those people that are in the audience that are actors, the conversations that are being held on stage, you should be having as you go into these theaters, because your life as a performer is tied back to the institutions that you begin in. And if they don't exist, and none of us do. In 76, the Black Theater Alliance was formed. And one of the first things that they did was bought a collective ad in the Sun-Times, because they couldn't buy it individually, so we collectively got together and did that. The second thing we did was we had a collective meeting with the critics from the Times and Tribune and so forth, because they were being very critical of Black art and Black theater. And what we said to them was, you have every right to feel what you feel about the play, but add how the audience responded at the end. Something we asked you to do. And they began to structure that thought. So for those of you that are actors, your options are simple. One, you can be a person that sits by the phone and waits for something to happen that might encourage you to be creative. Or you can find a methodology of creating, because to be an actor, you just have to act. To be a singer, you really just have to sing. So these institutions are there to provide a vehicle for us to grow. Without them, we won't. And so I commend all of you for what you do and what you're doing, because you don't have to. You can put yourself off in a vacuum someplace and just do your art still and be okay with that. But finally, in terms of, I left Chicago and I was gone for 20 years, but I left because I had mastered this market. I had done every possible thing that I could do in Chicago. And so I left, and I went to LA. And I worked in LA for a number of years. So I don't suggest that people don't leave. I also don't suggest that you sit around the house and do nothing. If you think you're going to be able to behave here in Chicago like you behave in LA if you go out there, in terms of being at the beach and not showing up for classes, workshops, and interviews, then you never make it. So drive these institutions into being what you will help them to become. Because it's not on them. You can do a play and you can run off, but you should be helping.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
I would say, hi, my name is Marshall Callery, and I manage a rising musical artist in the youth community named Zion Ali, who sings all around Chicago. But I would say to bring more people in the room, invite young people, because a lot of young people, for example, like I would love to have a young person on the panel just to talk about, who are doing a lot of active work in the community. I know so many people, and young people that would love this type of content and that would love to be at this event. Also, don't host things on a school day, because a lot of youth won't be in the room. So I would say that. I know a lot of organizations, a lot of town halls have events on during the week. But I would say I know a lot of young adults that would bring a huge presence. Like myself, I invited Africa Porter, Maggie Brown, and I'm very connected with the community. I live in the Hyde Park area. I love meeting business owners. Like I think I see the executive director of the Chicago League of Theaters over there, and a whole bunch of people. But I would love to collaborate, in the future. And mental health, talk about mental health, because that's what a lot of young people are dealing with right now with the work, what's going on. And they would love to learn from people that are older than them and then also younger than them as well. So.
And also the role that the arts can play in that healing is very important. Andre, you wanted to say something?
No, I would just concur in you know, there's an event that we do once a month called Artini. And growing up in Chicago, I think what we understood is kind of like, how do we keep growing the market? How do we find new customers? We understood that if we said art show, people would just, I'm not gonna go because that's too snooty for me, or maybe I don't know enough about art. But if you say networking event, people like, I know what a networking event is. And people need to get together. So as we were traveling, and we traveled to Africa, we were like, you know, people talk about Africa, but one thing Africa has right is multi-generational gatherings. Young, old, they get together, they have a good time, the kids are there, middle age. So that event, Artini, is an example of just adjusting to the market. What is the market doing? What can we do? And because we do it regularly, we've been doing it for about 10 years. We just moved the last 2 years to doing it every month because people want to know something's going on. They want to know where it is, and they want to know it's a safe space. So I think we all have an opportunity because people want something to do, and they're only getting more crazy because if you watch TV, you're gonna go crazy. So they need our spaces. So I just say we just have to find the funding to produce the events that we know how to do.
Ron, you want to jump in?
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. I wanted to add what you were saying about young people. That's what we really need to do because audiences are getting older, even working. We had a program called Beyond the Stage a few years back where I just had people walk around, watch what I do and what the designers are doing, what the sound people are doing, taking them to plays, to go backstage and see. So that is what, I say that about the ancestors, but I also say that about the young people, because that's how we pay it forward. That's how we go forward. And just adding to sometimes we got to do it on our own with bootstraps. We don't have the money. But if you do it, they will see it, and then they'll say, hey, maybe I can donate to this, or maybe I can see, are you going to do this? And I think that is the key, paying it forward, getting the young people involved so they can learn about this stuff. This AI stuff is taking over, so we got to stay in it. That's one thing I say to theater, you can't AI an actor up there on the stage. In the film and radio and voice and all that, but on stage, it's going to be an actor. And I just think that's just the key. The young people, getting the young people involved. We tried a program at court a while back I wanted to have senior citizens and young people in writing projects. We lost the funding for it, but those are the kind of things that I think, especially now when I came to court, it was kind of as a diversity person because the theater was known for being so white. And so they brought me in and audience went from like 1% to 30% people of color. But now it's shutting down because of all this federal government stuff that you were saying before. It's like you gotta be creative in these grants now. You can't say, I'm doing this because we need some diversity up in there, this and that. They'll shut it down. So you got to be creative. You got to say it's for education, or it is for that. It always is for that. But you got to kind of hide it in there and get the money anyway in another way because things are hard right now. This government is tripping. Excuse my language if that's.
Well said. And part of growth is also, of course, sharpening your tools. And how do you do that sometimes is about experiencing something that's out of your comfort zone. Let's say you work out at the gym and you keep doing 75 pounds every time you go. Sometimes you gotta kick it up a notch. Try something different so you can build muscle and grow. So my point is, if you hear about somebody having something that's interesting, artistic, creative, whatever the case may be, it may not be in your wheelhouse, but give it a try. It's just like traveling. Try a meal. Don't say, oh, I'm not used to this because we don't eat this where I come from. No, try it because there's a delicacy there. The same thing with our young community. If they hear about it, step out of your comfort zone because everything we do is open to everyone. So we would have to step out of our comfort zone to see how it works for us, to get inspired. You know, I took a trip to do a photo on a mountain. It was 8 hours one way. There's a lot of things that happen within that 8 hours in the desert. And it wasn't a hike where you walk past somebody and say hello. But I wanted to do it, partially because I was going through something in my life and I needed that time alone out in the desert. But I knew I was going to go get this shot. And when I share it to my peers who would not make that trek, it will give them some kind of, oh, I want to do something like that. And that's exactly what happened, right? So let's try experiencing new things. We're talking about theater, we're talking about art galleries, we're talking about a whole bunch of creative aspects. If you see it on social media, give it a go. Don't RSVP just in case you feel like going. RSVP or get a ticket if it's required, and commit to doing it, because it would benefit the people who put it together. And one last thing, when we talk about support, you know, of course there are theater folks in here and everyone else who probably sells tickets, so maybe this is not for you, but the rest of the world don't understand that when we put something together and it's ticketed, right? The ticket is there for a reason, because we need that financial support. But if it's a venue that we're renting out, if I'm doing a concert somewhere, for instance, yes, everyone is going to come and it's going to sell out the 300 seats. But our community tends to wait till that last week to get that ticket, not knowing that the venue is watching to see what that ticket sale is looking like. And sometimes people get their shows pulled because the venue thinks it's not going to sell, not knowing that it is at the 9th hour or at the 12th hour, right? So let's commit to supporting each other. When we see something happen, let's be excited for what our people are doing and jump in that pool and support.
That's great. And Joe needs to get in here. So.
I was going to say, I think the buying early is, very much a good thing, because we've had programs where we set a deadline that we need to have 5 people registered if this class is actually going to fly, because we are, like, given everything going on with grants and everything, we can't run a program that's not going to be financially successful. Even though we're a nonprofit, it was beaten into my head when I first started. Nonprofit is a tax status. It is not a business model. You have to have a healthy business. We finally were able to apply to a foundation this year because they looked at our financials and they said, you are too financially unhealthy for us to fund you. So they wouldn't give us the money. And so finally we've gotten our house in a stronger order where we're actually a contender this year. But that goes back to, we've had to pull programs because the day before, we've had like 3 people registered and we need 5, and then the day we pull it, someone calls and says, are you still registering? No. We've just emailed everyone and we've issued the refunds. We can't, and we're doing youth programs now. And I think this speaks to some of the youth engagement. Parents will sign up for kids, like we're doing a CPS day off camp. The day before they'll sign up. And everyone that I've been talking to who run programs like these, like, don't panic. Everyone will sign up 2 days before you actually run the program. Don't close it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a wing and a prayer and hope that that's the case. Because then we have a teaching artist who we've been working really hard to pay the dancers and teaching artists what they're worth. Not just like, here's an extra $10, but actually looking at national standards and cost of living and creating a real balanced and metered, like, this is what you should be earning. Which is why we have to pull things, because if we're not going to be able to make that money to pay that artist, it's coming out of the money that we would pay for rent. How we're going to pay the electric bill, it's coming out of that pot. Or we just have to, like, we'll get you when we can get you, which we haven't been able to, which we haven't done for a few years now, which is great. Hasn't always been the case in a lot of arts organizations. That's not always the case. And we've also, the last part, and then with the grant funding and the individual support and all of that, young people don't always have the highest paying jobs, so the programs, we have to offer them for free or at a lower rate. So we need the support to be able to do that in a way that's healthy for us and for the people who are leading the programs. We do free community classes once a month. We have corporate sponsors who came in. They're cheap programs for us to run, so the sponsorships aren't super large dollar amounts, but they help us at least make sure that the artists are being paid and we can keep them free. We have, we have a financial aid program, sliding scale based on income. Right now, that's coming out of our pocket. We don't have a funder to underwrite that. We don't have a benefactor. So it's looking at how much money is this class gonna make, how much money can we give away, so these twin 5-year-olds can have ballet at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And it's a really delicate balance, but it all speaks more to just how signing up early, making sure we know those dollars will be in the bank so we can run a program is so important. And then, again, going back to if you have $5 to give, that helps us offset the financial aid and gives us the security to run something that we think is gonna fly. That's the big difference between thinking and knowing.
Andre, and then I have a question as we wrap up for everybody. Oh, and Lucy, okay.
I just wanted to point out the urgency of now. I think we are at the precipice of cultural erasure. And I think this is real as right now. And we see DEI and it's on TV, but when you go to New Orleans and Bourbon Street, there are no more musicians playing outside. When you go the next street over where all the musicians used to be, it's all whitewashed. I mean, it's happening. And all of these cultural leaders are our culture, and we can no longer be what Chicago used to be. We take for granted our culture, because when we get ready to go on the road in March, we go out west, we go down south, people go crazy for the same art that's at Gallery Gishard every month that we can see. And it's the same for everybody else. But we have to be better cultural activists and just show up. You may not buy, you may not support, but unless we all take the responsibility individually, we will lose our culture. And I think it's that simple.
Lucy was on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention. So it's not just cultural erasure, there's replacement. There's a new kind of appropriation that's going on. You know, I mean, so there was an alternative halftime show, but there was Kid Rock, you know, not lip syncing, but he was, you know, grabbing his, you know, he was rapping, right? And so there's this just deep, unapologetic, even violent appropriation of our art, you know, across every single genre. So I just wanted to make sure that that was said out loud. And then the other thing, as an individual artist, and I want to get to know you, yes, because it would be great for some of us to have access to who the resources are for folks who, I mean, I know that social media is a necessity, but I still can't navigate it with ease. And so I would love to have access to folks who are, you know, are the experts and who, you know, and could kind of be a warehouse or a resource. And so have a, you know, give me a workshop, you know, on how to do it. And then have that kind of a collaborative thing, you know, a workshop for a number of artists who are at, you know, different stages. I think we would jump all over that if that was an opportunity.
So I think that this is helping to set the agenda for some of the future work that BACA wants to do, BACA hopes to do, BACA will do. This summit tonight was the first, and sort of got a number of issues out on the table. The collaboration is one, the need for training so that we can do social media. We didn't even get into sustainability or pipeline development so that these institutions can continue to thrive. Rael is taking over the quarry and the footsteps of his mom, Yvette Moyo, to keep an institution alive, which is very, very important. And I think it also goes back to a question that Pamon has raised for all of us. What is the community? what is the community that we have a responsibility for? You know, there's the broader arts community, there's the Chicago community, there are neighborhood communities, there's our youth community. So, you know, it's like the messaging also has to be targeted to the audience that you want to bring in, right? To the audience, and it's not just a one and done, right? What you're talking about, what does a relationship with community look like? How are we listening to what it is that they say they need, and how are we able to respond? I really want to underscore this notion of inviting young people. It is vital. I think if you went across this panel, you would have people tell stories about how an interaction with art as a young person, with a music teacher, with a visual arts teacher, taking a dance class, being taken to a museum. Those are the transformative moments that lead people into careers in the arts, and that's what we're talking about. How do we have people front of the house and back of the house, but devoted to the product that speaks to our history, our legacy, our contribution, our creativity, our innovation, and continue that pipeline going forward. So thank you for that comment, because and Ron, you had said it in your opening, we have to be much more intentional about making our children feel welcome in these spaces, and not just as a one-off. There was a wonderful arts in residence program in Minneapolis where the artists were there and they were making work. And the kids used to come by and knock on the door at 4 o'clock. Are you making art? Can we come and watch you make art? Okay? Just to watch that process and to understand it. So how do we make that more readily available? So my last question, I just want to emphasize that BACA will be doing regular workshops. This helped, I think, to give them some ideas about what kinds of continued activities they can do that would be of service to the community, and I think that they heard it tonight. I really do think they heard it. But I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start with Ron and go down this way. It's not that I'm prejudiced against you over there, but I'm just going to let the elder start us off with what is your dream for the Black arts community here, and what will it take to get there? Quick.
That's a hell of a question.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, microphone. I forgot, even though I could project. But no, I was going to say that what you were talking earlier about collaboration. I think, I've had an idea before about, a program or a show or a concert that has art, dance, music, and theater. So it's an evening of all of that in one place. So you got dancers, you got musicians, you got art in the lobby, and the artists out there talking about it, and making that a regular thing. So you got young people, you got older people, getting together, like everyone was saying about community. And then you're going into the community and getting that. And so you got to have everybody feel and see what other people are doing and experience it. I'm sure there's some money out there for that. If you write the right grant, write the way to write it. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Troy, what's your dream for the world?
I'll do some yes and. So everything that you just said and documenting that, making sure that there is some type of content or footage, because we can reach so many more individuals using the tools that are available. And so often we have so many amazing things that are happening, but folks are just not aware of those things. And the second point, when we talk about youth, I'm in this sort of middle position, I would feel right now. I was the youngest on a lot of boards 10, 15 years ago. And so if we want to engage, I know what that's like to sit in a room and to feel like people are not listening. So we may want to do those things, but we have to listen to what the youth are saying they need, what they want. And that's across the board. It's not just youth, it's any demographic. So we can say we need to target our marketing or target our messaging to attract a certain demographic. But the only way to do that effectively is that we have to listen first and understand what they want, so we're not just talking at, and we're actually in community with one another.
That's wonderful.
Yes, and
I remember years ago we had a place in Chicago called the Hot House. The Hot House was such a beautiful space of creativity, and everyone was welcome, and the programming was exceptional. I dream for us to have another place like that in the city of Chicago. I just feel like year by year, we're losing more venues where we can congregate, socialize, and be creative. But with what we have right now, continuing to open up the spaces to the young generation, for the rest of us to be open-minded to try new cuisines and new flavors that's outside of our craft, because we're all like a pot of gumbo, right? Our creativity is just like a pot of gumbo. We all make the sauce better. So if we can just open our minds and be more community oriented, build it and they shall come is what they say, but we also, that promotional key is really important to be on social media, and you will get the tools that you need to be able to do that, because that's the world that we're in today.
Either that or they just say, give me the phone, Amina, and
No, I want to go beyond that. So Anne, so some of the projects that one of the perks of doing some of the stuff is that we do, that I collaborate in these programs, is that we get to take our shows to the communities, as opposed to having a space, that's downtown or in one particular community. And so lots of programs that are in parks or in the field houses or stages that are, so that people can walk out of there, if they're comfortable enough, come out of their homes, go to the park, and get the same quality and amazing stuff that you would get if you had to come downtown or go to an established space. And so I would just love to be able to do that year round. It's what I do in the summer, but it would be great to have an opportunity to take whatever we do, whatever genre, and take it to as many communities as possible, so that people in every community in the city can have access to the best of the best.
Yes, and I think part of that, I was at the International Association of Blacks in Dance conference last week with Shawn and the Joel Hall Artistic Director, William Gill. And one of the things that we were talking about is fundraising, because for me, I'm the executive director, so I deal with QuickBooks and spreadsheets and balance sheets and nothing very fun, but really important. And in this session, we were talking about not asking out of deficit, but asking out of infrastructure. And it made me think of Mayor Johnson's transition plan and how every community should have a library, it should have a restaurant, it should have a cultural center. Like that for him was key. And I think similarly, like looking around at where we all live in our communities, what are our cultural centers, giving them that strength and that support, and supporting the infrastructure of our communities culturally. To me, that kind of strength and support is what I would want from BACA and for all of us, and in the Black community and in the arts community in general, and I think just in the city, that coming together.
Okay, I'm going to continue that because everything that's being said here is so important and so real, and I agree with. And I just want to say my idea is to see our Black is beautiful, where we really embrace who we are, not worry about the outside world, where we support each other financially, spiritually, in our presence, where we can then build on things like when we had Bill Cosby, something that we can be proud of, where we can show our youth something great that we are, the greatness that we are. So we can embrace the people are from Africa, where we know where we come from, and we're strong and deeply rooted in who we are, where we can embrace the music that we have with Michael Jackson and the such, because we are great, and I ideally would like to see us be our great selves and not worry about what other people do, but work together to build that.
Nice. So I will end with, I have a dream of using our creativity, my creativity, the platform of the gallery, to connect Pan-Africanism. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's kind of a weird, way out there kind of topic, but we're just one people. And through art, I continue to see how similar we really are. So the macro bird's eye view is just connecting this all up. How we're doing it this summer in terms of really thinking about this city and how segregated it is and how important cross-pollination is for even our own businesses to thrive, to bring some other zip codes from the north side to the south side. So this summer, we are bringing 170 Shona sculptures from Zimbabwe, life size, above life size, but there's a plan in motion to collaborate with the Field Museum, who's expanding their Africa wing, and the focus happens to be Zimbabwe. So starting this summer, we're gonna bring one of the sculptors, and he's gonna start sculpting at the West Side Garfield Conservatory. It'll be a raw stone from the mountains of Zimbabwe, about 5 feet tall. Then we'll move that to the Cultural Center. He'll keep sculpting, and this is over a 4-weekend. Then the next weekend, he'll go to the South Shore Cultural Center, sculpt some more. Then we'll move that evolving piece to Gallery Guichard. Then the final weekend, he'll go to the Field Museum, and he'll finish. And then at that time, it'll be unveiled and purchased by the Field. But all of those entities normally don't connect. And all of those entities need people. But I think that's an example of how we all have a need. No one knows about this majestic beauty coming out of Africa. And then when you see the sculptor who'll be here live, he looks like any one of us up here. So it's these simple things that are at our fingertips that we can use to connect and continue to support one another, but then grow and allow the world to see our greatness through art.
And this is the centennial of Black History Month.
Right. There's a hand? Yes. Oh, there are 2 hands. All right, and then, okay.
Running the mic to you. Might be for you. That looks like a handoff.
Thank you. I'm so glad I can talk. I work with the Chicago Foundation for Women. I came here as an artist too. I just won the BACA's Individual Artist Award. I'm working on my debut album. But CFW right now has grants for rapid response. So basically it's for nonprofits who are dealing with any repercussions of this administration, and if they're doing any sort of community organizing or advocacy to kind of combat the times right now. So that's like $1,000 to $5,000 grants. And then we have giving circles. So there's South Side Giving Circle, West Side Giving Circle, LGBTQ Council, Young Women's Council, Western Suburbs. But basically, look into that. Basically, folks just pull their money together, just community members, and they give grants up to $10,000, $15,000. So even just that model of philanthropy, I think more shift can be moved there. But then also like GoFundMe and just thinking about ways to make philanthropy accessible to, because people think about foundations as the biggest way to get money, but if there's definitely historical ways in which people have pulled money to support our organizations and our institutions. What else I was gonna say? I think some of how do we draw community? And I think more connection, more collaboration, even just social media groups. There's like with young alumni, there's like high school alumni groups, there's elementary school alumni groups, right? There's very specific blocks of connection that could be made, I think. And there's like I met a Black Girls Making Friends group, and they plan trips. So there's ways to make collaboration that might be
out the box
and non-traditional.
Okay, and I'm gonna move you along because we are at time. Any more brilliant ideas? These have been brilliant.
The intersections and I wrote down a bunch.
So
I'll talk to people. Oh, and AMP. AMP is a great nonprofit that provides support
AMPT.
for, yeah. Okay.
But that is for nonprofit organizations, $2 million and below on the west side of Chicago to provide technical support and services to them. So thank you, CFW. We got a foundation in the house. Who else had a hand up? Okay, Zora.
Hi, I'm Zara. This is Shanta. We are storytellers. We are part of the arts community. I would love it. I love everything that's been said tonight. I would also like to think about erasure in the sense of remembering. Everyone up here talks about the story and the storyteller, but also remember that there are people. Storytelling is also a profession. We are part of the arts community and would like to be validated by being invited to the table as well. You're talking about funding, if dance is at the bottom, storytelling as a career is underneath that.
Yes.
And I would love for it to be acknowledged for honoring the ancestors as well and bringing that forward and inviting us to
Sarah,
the
the point is very well taken, and BACA is taking note, okay? Absolutely. There will not be another panel without a storyteller on it, okay? We had one more. Doris? Okay.
Can we get a
That's
mic
okay,
right there?
That's right, I can talk loud. There were a couple of things that people said that I just wanted to make mention of, and I don't remember who said it, but I'm working on press for the Hamilton now. People think of Hamilton as, you know, a show that came about some years ago. Well, it's coming back to Chicago next month for an 8-week sit down. And, you know, I think about Hamilton, tickets are flying for Hamilton. And I have to ask myself, what is it about Hamilton? Because it didn't just happen over the course of some time. The moment we announced it, people started buying tickets. People are looking at the Constitution through very new eyes, because when we think about the Constitution, it's more than just a piece of paper. It's more than principles. It's culture that it's new readings. It's culture that really gives new readings to the Constitution, and that's where we are today. Our culture is being extracted from to create something new. Textbooks in school, they're all taking our culture and creating something new, a lie that didn't happen. So a couple of really quick things that people talked about. I want to say, it's not just our community that's waiting until the last minute to make decisions about how we're going to spend our extracurricular activity money. It's across the board. The wealthy are doing the same thing. So what we have to do is think about, how do we plan better, right? Because if we wait and create a sales opportunity for every single event, you're always going to be in a time crunch. Subscriptions, annual activities, automatic renewals, these are things that should become just a given. And it means we've got to plan more, because if people will buy 4 events in a year, even in an art gallery. And thinking about the collaboration thing, I'm waiting to get my invitation for each one of those stops for the experience that's going to happen at each one. And we'll be there. How we think about advertising today is different than how we thought about advertising prior. When you talk about how the wealthy are going to stay wealthy, the middle class is disappearing, and it's everybody else now, well, people are looking at ways to save money. People take public transportation more now because they want to save money for extracurricular activities. What about advertising on public transportation? And advertising does, and I know you know what I'm talking about, it doesn't have to look like you look up and you see something that you're reading. Learning the language of advertising today, geofencing. If there's a huge event somewhere, you can literally tap into every single person or carve out your demographic, and they will get something on their phone about whatever it is that you're trying, whatever message you're trying to send to them. So it's just kind of learning what we've always known, but there are different ways of doing it today.
Okay, last thought?
Yeah, just two more things. Collaboration was talked about a lot, and Ron, you talked about it. Chicago West Community Music Center, who I work with, we collaborated with Joel Hall last year, and you all did this beautiful original dance piece. We created original music for the piece, and we did a fundraiser at the Museum of Contemporary Art. It was sold out. We raised lots and lots of money. People want to see our culture, and when we collaborate, we can make beautiful things happen, and people will listen, and yes, if we build it, people will come, because we some bad people, y'all.
All right. I know we have one comment quickly, Maggie Brown, Magpie.
She's making me say something. I love you all. My daddy, Oscar Brown Jr., would have turned 100 on October 10th of this year. So Africa and I and other partners and people are just trying to pull together and do as much as possible to bring him out of someone we know about him, but he's pretty much obscure. Anytime they had the 50th anniversary of rap and hip hop and they didn't mention his name not one time, they don't even know who he is. And Robert Glasper recorded his song with Erykah Badu and didn't even give him credit. And you know who used his poetry over and over and over and over again, y'all? He used the snake to make people, bohunk, redneck, ignorant people, feel right about what's happening right now with ICE. He used Oscar's poetry. And I just want to do everything I can, while I can, to use Daddy's poetry to avenge that shit.
Amen.
And to, but more importantly, he was a hip cat, meaning human improvement potential. And he left a lot of things, y'all. And they're all running in my head. And y'all don't want me to go crazy with this stuff, so I know when we call on you and put out the call and say, okay, this is what it is, and this is when we're trying to do it, and that you'll, be a part of it.
An original institution in
Thank
Chicago.
Okay. I would like to just have 5 seconds to meet with several of you all. I'm internationally connected with some people. I'm well respected by some people, and I want to make sure you all know them, or make sure I know you know them. Thank you.
So that sounds like a real invitation for us to not only facilitate, but to adjourn so that people can start to form the line to come and talk to you. I want to thank you, audience. I hope next time we can get you even more engaged. This is the first of many discussions that we want to have about reinvigorating, extending, elevating the Black cultural community around Chicago, providing those skills not only for the institutions and individuals who are working today, but laying the foundation for the next generation. Please help me, first of all, no, I gotta go.
I know.
They're gonna throw me out. I want to just ask you to please help me thank this wonderful panel for all that they have shared with us today. And you will be able to ask your question at the reception, okay? Thank you all. Look for BACA. This is supposed to be a monthly or bi-monthly or semi-annual something. What's happening here, Doc?
It's a work in progress, but it's pretty much bi-monthly that'll be happening, so please, social media, we'll get the word out.
So the next one will be April, is that right? And I think you've gotten some great ideas of the programming. I also think we heard that it needs to be also on the weekend so that young people can come. So we want to keep that in mind, okay? But give yourselves a round of applause. This is really wonderful that you came out of the cold, wintry night. Can it travel travel to other parts of the city. Yes, we were hosted here, but the idea is that it's not only going to be here. BACA is citywide, so it will come to the city and to different parts of the city as well. Great question. All right, everybody, I'll see you outside. Thank you. There's some light refreshments, but thank you all for coming.